Okay, today's topic is about steroid-induced glaucoma, and I'm very honored to be a part of this subspecialty day glaucoma. Coming to the disease entity, it was first appreciated in the 1950s by Dr. Gordon and MacLean. Here, there is an increase in the intraocular pressure, and they noticed that after the administration of systemic adrenotrophic corticotropic hormone, there was an increase in the intraocular pressure. Dr. Francos was the first one who reported a case of the elevated IOP after locally administered cortisone. Definition has varied, considered to be an IOP increase greater than 10 millimeter of mercury from baseline. Patients who experience an IOP rise in the settings of glucocorticoid use are considered as steroid responders. Coming to the etiology, the steroid-induced glaucoma is a form of secondary open-angle glaucoma in which aqueous outflow resistance is increased, leading to an elevation in intraocular pressure. The number of mechanisms that were postulated were the induction of the physical and mechanical changes in the microstructure of the trabecular meshwork, the inhibition of the proteosis and the trabecular meshwork endothelial phagocytosis, and deposition of the substance in the trabecular meshwork. Now, next, coming to the risk factors, anyone can be at the risk for steroid-induced glaucoma, and the risk of glaucoma increases as the duration of the therapy increases. Some of the risk factors here are the primary open-angle glaucoma, a first-degree relative with primary open-angle glaucoma, a history of previous steroid-induced intraocular pressure, type 1 diabetes mellitus, a very young age less than 6 years old or an older age, connective tissue disease, penetrating keratoplasty, and high myopia. The key points that we need to remember here is in this subset of patients, the intraocular pressures should be monitored regularly. Care should be taken to avoid corticosteroids if possible. If corticosteroids are indicated, the judicious use of an adequate potency and duration should be considered. Now, coming to the type of steroids, topical ocular preparations, as we all know, the corticosteroids drops or ointment. The potency of the topical ophthalmic steroids tends to correlate with the severity of the intraocular pressure rise. Difluoroprednate is the most likely to elevate intraocular pressure, followed by dexamethasone, prednisolone, loteprednol, and fluorometholone. The proportion of patients who will experience an intraocular pressure rise is not as well defined, though it is seen that it is strongly correlated with the patient's risk factors for developing glaucoma, regardless of steroid use. Coming to the periocular steroids, which is subconjunctival, subtenon retrovalvular injections, the elevation of intraocular pressure noted cannot always be predicted by the patient's response to topical steroid treatment. The proportion of patients who experience an intraocular pressure response from periocular steroids is considered greater than the topical ophthalmic steroids. It may be necessary to excise the intraocular pressure in future. Fluocinolone and dexamethasone, the timing and incidence rate of intraocular elevation that develops after intravitreal administration of corticosteroids varies depending on the molecule and the dose of the drug that is used. Coming to the dermatologic use of steroids, elevation occurs most frequently with chronic use, such as in patients with atopic dermatitis and in patients with a family history of glaucoma. And this is the most often missed diagnosis of a steroid responder in skin diseases. Coming to the systemic and non-ocular targeted, an increase in intraocular pressure and glaucomatous change is a well-known risk factor of systemic steroids for immunosuppression in renal transplant patient population. I see a lot of steroid-induced glaucoma because I'm working in a multidisciplinary hospital and we deal with a lot of renal transplant patients. And usually these patients usually come with a full-blown optic atrophy or a probably near total glaucomatous optic atrophy. Systemic corticosteroids carry a widely appreciated risk of ocular hypertension as well. And there is a strong association between the risk of steroid response and the numerous non-modifiable risk factors. Diagnosis: definitely, all patients receiving topical ocular steroids, periocular or intravitreal steroids need to be monitored regularly, as I mentioned earlier. The chronic ocular steroids should not be administered by non-ophthalmic physicians. And this is a very important point which we need to keep in mind. unless the patients are also being followed by an ophthalmologist. All patients using dermatologic steroids on the face should also have periodic intraocular pressure measurements. Patients in the high risk group mentioned above should use steroids judiciously and be monitored closely if the steroids are used long term. Coming to the management, definitely the first thing is to discontinue steroids. In the acute form of intraocular pressure elevation from steroids, discontinuing steroids can cause the IOP to normalize in days. But when it's a chronic form, the elevation of IOP can last 1 to 4 weeks, though steroid therapy has been maintained for more than 18 months. The IOP can stay elevated far longer after withdrawal of therapy. In a small subset of patients, we've seen that the intraocular pressure may remain chronically elevated despite discontinuation of steroids. Removal of depot steroids, that is excising the depot steroids, vitrectomy can also be used to reduce intraocular pressure, and many of these patients may require glaucoma medication or surgery to control intraocular pressure. Coming to the glaucoma treatment as per, the treatment of the steroid-induced glaucoma is very similar to that of primary open-angle glaucoma and includes the use of topical glaucoma medications, laser trabeculoplasty, filtering surgery, and glaucoma drainage implant surgery. It has been seen in literature that selective laser trabeculoplasty has been proven to be effective, but not many centers do have an access to this laser therapy. Goniotomy is considered by some to be a particularly effective treatment. Similarly, cannuloplasty has been proven to be promising too. Now, coming to my last slide, the points to ponder, we have to take a proper history taking of these patients to know whether they have any pre-existing glaucoma or not, whether they have any strong family history of glaucoma or not. Monitoring of such kind of patients who are on steroid is very of utmost importance, because though optic nerve atrophy happens over the years, but if we control it at the earlier stages, we can stop these patients from getting into blindness. The type of choice of steroid or the type of steroid use is also an important factor here. Next, coming to the awareness for the non-ophthalmologists who are treating patients with steroids, as well as for dermatologists who are giving steroids to these patients, they need to be aware that an ophthalmologist's opinion is of utmost importance. One more important thing is the nephrologists. They usually don't agree on stopping their steroid treatment for the eye, but it's very difficult to convince them, because for them, for the renal transplant to keep working, these patients need to be on steroids. Hence, an awareness needs to be created amongst them. And lastly, timely management of such patients, we can definitely stop them from growing into total glaucomatous optic atrophy. Thank